Well, top of the morning, Southern Oregon, and welcome back to the Real Estate Show. So happy to have you join us again. This week, I'm Alice Lema. I'm a broker here in beautiful Southern Oregon with John O. Scott Real Estate. And we have a new format to the show. We're so excited to let you know that we're going to have some regular, really fun updates. And we have a lender kind of financial update for a few minutes every week now. We do have our regular guest segment for our educational benefit. And we have our new sponsor, Homeness Property Management, bringing us a brand new landlord tenant section. So every week for a few minutes, we'll be discussing that landlord tenant situation, not only for Southern Oregon, but nationally. Brought to you by Homeness Property Management. Thank you so much. And then we'll be finishing with a few minutes of maintenance tip, do it yourself, some of those trades and things you can do or stop doing to your property to make it better. So that's our new format. We hope you like it. And let's get on with the market statistics for what's going on in all three counties in Southern Oregon this week. Jackson County prices year over year this week were down 3%. The average residential property costing $458,686. The number sold year over year in Jackson County were about even. We had 38 closings on SOMLS in the residential market, Jackson County, this week. The number of listings year over year were up 6% this week in Jackson County. We now have 648 active listings on SOMLS in Jackson County this week. Josephine prices this week, year over year, were up 10%. The average residential home in Josephine County now costing $506,746. Number of sold year over year in Josephine County were up 13%. We had 17 closings on SOMLS in Josephine County this week. The number of listings year over year in Josephine County were up 4%. We now have 308 active listings on Josephine County SOMLS this week. Klamath County prices year over year were down 23%. The average residential property in Klamath now costing $310,300. The number of sold year over year were about even in Klamath County this week. There were 8 closings on SOMLS in Klamath County residential market this week. The number of listings in Klamath year over year this week were up 13%. We now have 265 active listings on SOMLS in Klamath County's residential markets this week. Now, what does this all mean? We have all these numbers, but here's what I'm noticing. Once again, all three counties, the number of listings are up. Now, here we are just the end of February, so kind of getting out of our winter housing season and moving into the spring housing season. But consistently during our winter and fall this year, we have had a lot of listings coming on the market in all three counties. So buyers and sellers, pay attention to that. The market is starting to try to even out the inflationary effects of all of the weird stuff happening in the world. They are subsiding. So also, I'm noticing that prices are still going up, but it's very hit and miss now. And it depends on the county. It depends on the week. Klamath County prices were down 23% this week. Jackson County prices were only down 3% this week. Josephine County prices were up 10% this week. So there's a little bit of volatility, but overall, the trend is that more inventory is coming on the market, and that's putting pressure on prices because there's more choices, and also because the interest rates still are pretty high, even though they've come down a little this week, they're still pretty high, and that's subsiding the inflationary. So now let's bring on Guy Giles from Mutual Mortgage for our lender update. Well, Mr. Guy Giles, thanks for being on and doing our dedicated segment for a few minutes every week. You're
I'm
going to be doing our market update and lender tips. Thanks so much.
Hey, well, I'm glad to be back, and anyway, ready to talk a little bit about a pretty big week, but overall, probably a pretty good month. We've just been finally having things go in our direction for a while. So maybe a couple of headwinds up the road, but there's compensating factors that might make that okay too. So I think probably the biggest thing going on right now is Friday. The PCE numbers came out. The personal consumption, it's a mouthful. Personal consumption expenditures, and it really is one of the Fed's big things that they look at as far as where they're going to go with rates. And I always preface that with they don't control our mortgage rates, but inflation does. And because they kind of walk hand in hand, the 10-year treasury, what the Fed has going on and the mortgage-backed securities that we actually trade for the mortgages on, it's been looking a little bit better. And at this point, year over year, it's a little bit unchanged. We were at 0.3 for the month. So that meant year over year, it's been about 2.6%. So inflation a whole lot tamer than it was just a couple of years ago, and it's been slowly working its way in the right direction. And we finally had some positive movement just overall for a couple of sustainable weeks now, which is something we haven't seen. Every time it looks like it's going to get better, it's just another something jumps in and bites us, and it hasn't done it lately.
And remind people what subsiding inflation does to home prices. That means it's
Mm.
not, the prices are not going up anymore like they were, right?
Definitely not like they were, but you'd be really shocked to see what actually happened in the last 5 years. I mean, if you look at an average in the last 5 years, and we are counting 22, when it was probably the biggest, but in the last 5 years, 20, and this is an average. This isn't Jackson County. This isn't Southern Oregon. This is everybody. In 2020, it was an average of 10.6%.
Yep. Yep.
In
That's true.
2021, yeah, it was 19%, which is insane. And then you add in when it started kind of coming down was 19 or 22 was 5.7, 23 5.8, and this last year 4%, which 4% on a $400,000 house is still $16,000 in appreciation. And I think that if you've been waiting this whole time, you know, don't look back that far because I guess
Thank
people say
you.
that.
Don't live in the past. But what does
No,
that
no.
also have to do with the mortgage rates? Like, did they go up or down
Well,
this week?
they've gone down sustainable for a couple of weeks actually. So that doesn't mean we're back down into the 5% or 4% or something like that. But it could put us in the high sixes and in the maybe in the high fives for some of the government stuff, which we've just been really spoiled. Historically, we're lower than the average, forever. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody that's younger or wasn't in the housing market or looking does not remember that, when I got into it, it was right around 6.5. So nothing's
Mm-hmm.
really changed from when I started. And again, things are kind of moving in the right direction. We can't just take out the fact that houses went up and there's no way that wages can keep up with that. But having it as part of your portfolio is still a really, really good idea. And we can just prove that if it never got any better than 4%, which was the lowest one in 5 years, you still have a nice, comfortable rate of appreciation. And, when you retire, that's all compounding. So overall, in really, really good shape.
Well, and
Um,
that's super exciting. Inflation is waning. Things are settling down. What do you see for the coming weeks and months?
well, this PCE was a decent number for us, not really going down. What we have is this is just something I've talked about in the past, like with the shelter costs and some of these, because they're averaging them year over year. So you have the first number and you have the last number, 12 months, 12 numbers later. And being an average of that, we did have some some low numbers toward the middle part of last year that we'll be replacing in about 3 months. So that's what I meant, about there may be a little bit of headwinds, for some of this stuff. It's really hard to just, I mean, I figured out I don't have a crystal ball in the last couple of years. I really thought I did, but I do see that things are finally on a sustainable, just kind of loosening up as far as the inflation goes. So I would anticipate rates, they're not gonna drop overnight, but overall, I think they're just gonna trend down maybe another, 0.5% or so by the end of the year,
That's not
hopefully.
very much.
No, but it adds up. It really does. And I think people mentally, if they're in the low sixes or mid sixes, is a whole lot better than the mid sevens. So, maybe it'll get some people off the fence. And, I'm optimistic that it'll be a little bit better than that. But again, from what has happened in the last few years, I think all bets are off the table, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, we haven't predicted the Federal Reserve Bank's actions correctly yet.
No, no, and although I've criticized them in the past, I think they were way too slow at reducing them. I think that they're doing everything pretty good right now, and they haven't changed. They're the same people, hanging around in there, and I think that they learned from that a little bit, and they're cautiously doing what they're doing at this point, and
Hmm.
they should be.
Hmm.
So.
And if rates do go down significantly, it's because somebody up there thinks we're in trouble economically, right?
Yes, yes. So, it's not a bad thing that they're not down yet. And if I had a tip for this week, I would say just keep an eye on your credit, because you don't want to get caught with that when you are ready to buy.
Sounds great. Well, Mr. Guy Giles from Mutual Mortgage, thank you so much. So why don't we start with what GoodWorks is and how it came to be?
Sure, sure. So GoodWorks Services, we started back in 2010. So we've been in business for about 15 years ago, 14, 15 years. We started in Las Vegas when we lived there as just a one-man handyman business. So moved it up here, and then about 7, 8 years ago, we were approached by a gentleman. He worked out of a foundation called Grandma's Porch, asking us if we would be able to install grab bars and safety equipment and transfer benches and transfer poles, wheelchair ramps for some of their needy customers, that couldn't afford it. So we said, yeah, we'll be able to help you with that, and donated some time and things to help them with that, and it just kind of grew into more of a business that we do more of wheelchair ramps, more of bathroom renovations, kitchen renovations, making it accessible for people in wheelchairs, or just people with difficulty to would be mobile and things like that. So,
Hmm.
so we've been doing that for, gosh, 7 years, 8 years. We've installed thousands of grab bars, installed hundreds of wheelchair ramps. And then a few years ago, came across this CAP certification where it's an actual, like an official course given by National Association of Home Builders, who is a home builder association most of you guys are aware of, I'm sure. And it's a 3-day course, I believe. It's either 2 or 3 days, and they teach you everything from, putting a plug up a little bit higher so somebody in a chair could reach it, or a light switch a little bit lower so again somebody in a chair could reach it. They also teach you about the customer service, keeping the client's dignity, keeping them their freedom, just different things is it encompasses all of that. So it's the experience we already had going into it, but then just getting the certification and designation was just a step further. So my husband and I both, my husband is co-partner of this business, and we're both CAP certified and share that education with our employees as well. So that's pretty cool. We
How
go into,
exciting.
yeah, yeah. It's really rewarding. We do normal bathroom renovations, normal kitchen. They don't all have to be accessible, and we do a lot of that work. But it's so rewarding when you go into these people's home and they haven't been able to do their dishes for a couple of years because the dishwasher's too high or something like that, and you can fix that for them. So it's pretty fun. It's
And what's interesting is that until it happens to you or one of yours, you don't realize the dishwasher is too high or the
Right,
light switch is
right.
too high. And it comes as quite a surprise to families.
Yeah, there's so many things we still learn every single time we go into a home. We do a inspire assessment where we go through their entire home and say, okay, show us how you get in your tub, show us how you do this, things like that, and we offer so many things that a lot of clients didn't know that that equipment even existed, or that option isn't even available. So it's very cool to have that education and the experience that we're able to share that with our community.
Mm-hmm. So what would just like a run of the mill assessment look like here in Medford, Oregon?
Yeah, so typically what happens is Jim is more the boots on the ground. He does the actual assessments for the most part. Um, Jim is my husband. Sorry, I don't know if I said that earlier.
That's okay. We'll include him.
Okay. So he goes into the home and he speaks with the customer, asks them, what they're having difficulties with, and they address that first off and foremost. Say they're having a problem, getting up and down off the toilet, so they put in a toilet riser, things like that. Just anything to keep their independence and to keep their dignity. Nobody wants anybody to help them use the restroom or take a shower. So we try to address that first and foremost. And then we'll go around the entire house with them, including the bathroom, the kitchen are kind of your main areas, your entry and exit points, and just make sure that they can get in and out with whatever their situation is.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just need a bar to hang on to while you walk down the steps. Sometimes you need a whole ramp. It just kind of depends on the whole situation. So it is if I remember right, a 60-point inspection that's, outlined that many points, but then you also, it's very ad-libbed as well, just depending on the situation, the home environment, and the client as well.
Wow, a 60-point inspection. That's pretty extensive.
Yeah. Yeah, we look at everything from light switches to, microwave placements. So it's quite extensive for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a good hour. Sometimes clients like to talk a little bit more, as you're aware. So, it can take even a little bit longer, but to do a really thorough inspection or assessment is about an hour. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
and you learn a little more if they're talking.
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
very true.
you might get some clues about um, other up and coming issues with their home. So how many of these folks do you think are avoiding? I mean, this is just a hypothetical, really, question, but as you're talking, I'm wondering, well, all these people get to stay in their homes longer. I'm just
Mhm.
wondering, but we didn't talk about that question ahead of time, but how much
No,
they might get to stay. Has anybody had a chance to figure that out? Because I bet it's
it's
quite a number of years longer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because, installing the safety equipment for them, it not only, allows them to move around and things, it also prevents falls, which falls are one of the
Right.
major things that put people in hospitals. Break hips or legs, and at an elderly age, you don't heal as quickly as you do when you're
Yeah.
younger.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a huge thing. So I mean, you really couldn't put a firm number on it, but I would say at
Mhm.
least 10,
We
10
might
more
go,
years.
yeah, we might maybe do a survey or something
Yeah.
and check.
So yeah, as we discussed, we think, approximately 10 years longer, but just, preventing those falls is the biggest part of all of that. And, if you can't get into your home, of course, you can't stay there. So, putting the ramps in or stairwells, whatever's needed. So yeah,
Mhm,
it definitely extends their time at home and makes them more comfortable.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
So when you're doing the assessment, and you said it can take up to an hour, um, is there a priority list of hazards in a home? I was just wondering, how do you decide what to address first, and is there a priority order?
There is top priority is always fall risk. That's what you look at first, and that encompasses anywhere from the kitchen. If they're trying to stretch and reach up to a counter, they could easily slip. Something like that. In the bathroom is a huge one. Can they safely get in and out of their tub? Do a big one that we do is tub to shower conversions. So you take
Oh,
out the
I'll
old,
bet. Mm-hmm.
yeah, take out the old cast iron or fiberglass tub, and put in these nice, they're either zero threshold, so you can roll a whole wheelchair in there, or just a very low threshold, like maybe an inch high. So it's very easy to step over into it. And, they just make the world of difference for people and, the fall risk and everything like that. Another big one is raised toilets, like we talked about, because that just, you can get on and off the toilet so much easier, which again reduces your fall risk. We also look a lot at fire equipment safety, or, they have proper fire not extinguishers, but fire alarms, smoke alarms.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. CO2 alarms, things like that, warning systems to make sure that they're able to get out of the house. We've installed a couple things for the hearing impaired, like a shake thing that goes under the bed, so
Really?
they can't hear the alarm, but they can be shaken awake. Yeah. Yeah. We've done a few of
Wow.
those.
And that's in case of fire?
Yeah. Yeah. In case of fire.
Cool.
If I remember right, it also hooked up to the CO2. So, it was, just an alarm system basically for when they're sleeping. Yeah, so a lot of that, and then of course the entry and exit points, so they can, if there is an emergency or just daily living, you need to get in and out of your house. Are those safe to to get you in and out? So if there's wood stairs or some rottage, where if there's a soft point, then you could easily fall or lose your balance. Are your railings secure? Just anything across the board like that. With wheelchair ramps, I'm sure you're aware that there's all sorts of ADA regulations of the slope, how sloped down it could be. If it's too sloped, somebody's going to race down there off their chair, which won't be good. They have to have rails on the side so you don't fall off of the ramps. There's a lot of different little things that you wouldn't really think about until you kind of really work through all these things. So in addition to those 3 points, we also look at, the safety of getting out of their car and into their, up their driveway. Yeah. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Look at the entire environment that they're in. Sometimes even kitchen equipment, is their stove safe, things like that. So yeah, it's very thorough, all through the house.
How about we throw out a quick phone number before we go to this commercial break?
Sure. 541-210-5060.
Great. And your website real quick?
It's GoodWorks SVCS, which is abbreviated for service.
So I want to loop back to the zero threshold showers, because not everybody knows what they are exactly.
Yeah. Gosh, I wish I had some media to share with you. So typically you have a bathtub that has I think it's probably 2 feet high side on it, maybe even a little bit higher. And, you have to climb in there and, take your shower or bath, whatever you're doing. So what we do is we take those out entirely. There are other options, but the best one we like is you take it out entirely. And you put in, where that bathtub is this high, you put in a zero threshold. So now you only have this little lip to step over. And again, they have other ones that are zero threshold, so you can roll your wheelchair right into them.
So it's really the same as the floor. It's like the floor is extended into the bottom of the shower.
Exactly.
Wow,
exactly. So the ones with the zero threshold, you actually recess down the shower. So the shower is a little bit lower, so it has drainage.
Was my next question.
Yes.
The drainage.
Yeah. So normally, because that's more extensive and expensive, normally people are okay with doing the little 1-inch lip that gives it just enough so you have the proper drainage and you can still easily get in and out. And then you also do things like you remove any of those sliding doors. Those we like everything to be nice and big and open. So it's there nothing that you're going to grab onto if you're falling that would fall with you.
Right.
So just make sure that you have everything, as many grab bars as you need to make sure that you're safe in that. But those tub to shower conversions too are beautiful. I mean, we've done 2 in our house now because we're still able to get in and out of the old tubs. But when I saw how much these open up your bathrooms, you just take out that whole barrier and you put in these nice, big, open, beautiful white showers, and clean walls and stuff, and they just look really nice. So
I bet.
yeah,
It and you never know. See, that's the thing. Younger people might, younger by, I mean, over 55, but not maybe 95.
mhm.
There's a range. There's no reason why you have to wait till it's an emergency to get
Thank you for
ready to
bringing.
age. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. That's actually a really good point that we talk about a lot. Actually, just had this conversation with my parents who are in their 70s.
How did that
Um,
go?
it was great. They were actually really receptive to it. So some other parents, not so much, but
Oh my gosh, most people are not.
right, right. Yeah, mine were good with it. My in-laws, they were not so happy about it, but they finally conformed. But the thing is, you don't want to wait until you're stuck in the hospital and waiting to get home till you have a ramp installed. You want to make
Is
sure that
that how it goes down? Like
it
people get
happens.
hurt,
Yes.
they're in the
Yeah.
hospital and they can't get out till their house is different.
Yeah. They
Oh,
won't
wow.
release them until they have a ramp. And,
What a
with
drag.
oh, for sure, for sure. We try to prioritize those as much as possible, but with construction, you're booked out quite a bit, and you try to move things around. But there's been people we've known that have been stuck for a good couple weeks in the hospital just waiting for a ramp to be built. So,
Wow.
yeah. So there. I should talk about. There's temporary ramps that you can put in place. We're a dealer for it's called Easy Ramps. They're those aluminum ones.
Oh yeah,
We
yeah,
don't
yeah.
yeah, we don't necessarily love them because they're just not very pretty.
And they're clunky
But
and noisy.
yes, they are very noisy, but they are safe and they're a great alternative to something temporary until you can get a better one
So do
built
you
or,
rent
a different.
those?
Yeah, they can be rented. They
Okay.
can be purchased. The problem with renting is the configuration of how high your door is compared to where you need to start that ramp. It's
Hmm.
pretty custom configuration if you have to
Yeah,
have
I would agree.
yeah. So
Every house is
that's one.
different. They're
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
so different. Yes.
Yeah. And that's another reason we really like the wood ramps also because they're aesthetically pleasing. You can build them exactly how you want them. And you could do the exact specifications that you have to do to make sure it's safe as well.
Mhm. So I'm trying to ask you about two-story houses, but what about two-story houses? How does that work?
They're called chair lifts, and it's kind of like a railing that goes along your stairs. And then there's a chair that you can, out of your wheelchair, you transition to that chair that goes along the stairs. It brings you up on a chain system or hydraulics, kind of depends on what you get. And then you would have another wheelchair up at the top where you get out of the transition chair,
Oh,
you get
okay.
off of that and into your wheelchair upstairs.
Hmm.
Um, what we typically, if possible, we like to convert a bedroom downstairs, just to keep
Oh,
it's,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's much better. But sometimes you can't. So yeah, that's a pretty they're pretty expensive. They're pretty pricey, but the installation is not too crazy. So it's a good alternative.
Hmm. Hmm.
I've also seen people put in elevators into
Yeah,
their.
that's getting to be more popular.
It is, yes, and we cannot do those. That's a whole different trade. But we can always refer to anybody that
Yeah.
needs.
So are you able to go into somebody's home and make their hallway wider? Can you do that kind of construction?
Yeah, we can, as long as it's feasible in the house. As long as it's not a load bearing wall or stuff like that. Yes, we can
Uh-huh.
definitely do widening. We've widened many doors. A lot of the older homes have pretty narrow doors.
They are surprisingly narrow.
Yes,
The
for
older the
sure, for
house, the
sure.
smaller the people must have been.
Yeah. Yeah. We Another thing you don't really think about until you do is the bathroom doors. So if they go in and if somebody has fallen and that's a pretty small bathroom or their wheelchair is smaller. I mean, or yeah, they're in a wheelchair, they have to get in the bathroom. Having that door open out as opposed to in, that solves so many problems because if they fall behind that door, you're not stuck trying to get the door open when they're on the ground behind
Oh,
it.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, you wouldn't think of stuff like that. So that's a pretty simple switch of just some hinges. And then, you can do the pocket doors, which are harder in existing homes, the ones that slide into the wall.
Yeah. They're harder
So
for
those,
the construction, you mean?
yeah, because there's always studs and stuff within the walls.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
So what we'll look at is if there's room for a barn door as opposed to the doors on the outside
That
of the
was
wall
my
that's
next
still just,
question.
yeah,
Yeah.
still just slides up. It gets the door out of the way. You have much more room to move, and it's really a good solve to a lot of that.
Yeah. And they looked fun and they're trending on
Mhm.
Pinterest.
They really are. The hard work for those is some really cool stuff. I love those things.
Yeah.
But
So do those barn
yeah,
doors lock?
you can do latches for them. They have like a little swing latch because
Oh,
it
they
doesn't
do.
sit
Like
flush like a regular door. Yeah, but it has a
uh-huh.
little swing latch that you can put in there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Because that's a question I get too when I recommend the barn door, because I just think doors are such a waste of space.
Yeah, they are. They
And
are.
it's
The
like,
barn
well,
doors
how
are
do you lock
great.
it when you go in the bathroom? You're like, they're afraid to go in the bathroom if they can't close the door and lock
Yeah,
it.
I understand it'd be the same. But yeah, there's a very simple solution with just those little latches that solve that.
Yeah,
It's
and
not
is
a
that on the
lock, but
so it's like on the inside, like a screen door, an
yes.
old school screen door.
Yeah, it's on the inside. Yeah. So they have, complete control of who opens it and things.
Yeah. And actually, if you got stuck or you fell, that would be easy to break. Like if the fire
Mm,
department had to come, or those little
yeah, that's a
latches aren't it's not like
very
kicking down.
right. That's a very good point. I never even thought about that. Yeah, because they pop off pretty not
They do
easily,
pop
but
off. Yeah.
a little bit of force and you can definitely get that
Yeah,
open
they
pretty
won't take
easily.
the whole door with them like
Right.
a deadbolt might. Well, nobody puts a deadbolt in their bathroom, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. We've seen some crazy things.
I bet. I bet it's really fun to go in and out of houses. You
Yes.
never have you always have a lot of stories. Let's give your phone number and website again, just so that people for sure can have that.
Sure. Phone number is 541-210-5060. And website is GoodWork Services SVCS. So it's GOODWORK.
So I also wanted to talk about the raised toilets. It's
Yeah.
one of the top questions that I get. So are you adding on to the existing toilet, or are we
Yeah.
doing all new ones, or what are we doing here?
The quickest, most economical fix is to put on a raised toilet seat. Basically just raises up the seat of the toilet,
Mm-hmm.
1 to 2 inches, and that's as easy as switching out a normal toilet seat. So nothing too complicated about that. And then the other one is a full raised toilet. You can buy toilets that are constructed higher than a normal one. And that you have the cost of the toilet plus the cost to switch them out, all that stuff.
So did I hear you say that this might be covered by insurance?
Yeah, some insurance plans do cover this type of DME.
Really?
There used to be a number out there, but it really, it's a huge reduction in falls, huge reduction in, injury and things like that, which saves the insurance company thousands,
Mm-hmm.
when they could, put in a wheelchair ramp and grab bars, for a few thousand as opposed to hundreds of thousands for a
Mm-hmm.
fall injury.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just check with your plan. And some plans cover it, some don't. So it's really just check with your insurance and see if they will. We are providers for a majority of the insurances here in town that are based in town.
Mm-hmm.
And you can definitely, they can request us, but they also have other people on their lists, that you can call out to. So there's multiple people that can help you with that.
Wow. Well, that's great to know that it might be covered by
Yeah.
insurance. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show. So glad to have you back again. We have a special treat. We have a new sponsor, Home Nest Property Management, and we now can have a dedicated landlord tenant section on the Real Estate Show. And we're just thrilled to have Home Nest Property Management generosity and graciousness so that we can provide that every week. So this week, we're going to start by discussing a report from Zillow Rental Manager, sorry. And Zillow Rental Manager has a report for the greater Medford, Oregon area. And it says that the average rents right now in the greater Medford area are $1,595 a month. That's almost $1,600 a month. That is a $100 difference year over year, and that's actually $100 lower than it was this time last year. And we have about 125 available rentals in the greater Medford area. Now, I know $1,595 sounds high to a lot of tenants, but compared to the national average, that's actually, our area is actually lower than the national average, which I know the tenants don't feel like it, but it is. So our price ranges for our greater Medford area start as low as $600 a month, which I found shocking. I haven't seen a lot of $600 a month units, but that is the lowest. And then it goes all the way up to $19,000 a month. And I don't know what that looks like. I'd love to see that unit. But that's our range for our greater Medford area, $600 a month to $19,000 a month, with the average being $1,595. Now, you may not know that the rental market in Southern Oregon is somewhat seasonal. Now, it's not as dramatically seasonal as the purchase market, but it does have its own ebb and flow. And a lot of that has to do with the timing of the schools. It's when people get new jobs. It's also influenced by the weather a little bit. Again, not as dramatic as the purchase market, but the rental market does have its own ebb and flow. And right now we are down about $100 a month from this time last year on average. However, now because of the Homeness Property Management sponsorship, we can dive into that every week and bring you all the latest information. So you could be good consumers, whether you're a landlord or a tenant, knowing the data regarding prices and how that changes during the year. Super, super important. Generally speaking, our market temperature is considered warm by Zillow Rental Manager, and that's about what it feels like. Now, what that means is it's medium, and it's kind of evenly positioned between landlords and tenants. So it's ever so slightly on the side of the landlords right now as far as price. And again, I know there's tenants that would argue that, but statistically speaking, that's what the data says. It's in a medium place right now, and relatively stable for the moment. And we'll just watch it every week and bring you the information. Let's take a look at the other little communities around the greater Medford area so you can get a feel for what the rents are going right now. Phoenix, Oregon is averaging $1,400 a month in rent. Central Point, $1,895, almost $1,900 a month in Central Point. Talent is coming in right now at $1,650. Jacksonville is coming in at $2,000 a month, average rents. Eagle Point, $2,100 a month, average rents, which I found that surprising. Eagle Point's always been more of a value-based area. Quite a nice community, but $2,100 a month is what it's coming in at right now. Let's check our other outlying areas. Rogue River is averaging $1,200 a month for their rental market. Shady Cove is coming in at $1,125 a month. White City, $1,850. Grants Pass, $1,495, almost $1,500. Gold Hill coming in at $1,250, and Ashland coming in at $1,700. So you can see there's quite a wide variety. Make sure you check where you're buying and what the average rents are, and when you're renting, just make sure that you want to be there and you don't want to look around to see if you can find a community that's lower priced. So that's our update for this week, brought to you by Homeness Property Management. We're going to check over to our Blake Hughes is coming on next to give us our maintenance tips, homeowner and landlord maintenance tips for this week. This is, again, part of our new format. Every week, we're going to have a section devoted to care and do-it-yourself tips for your house, your apartment building, your rental, your condo, whatever you have. We're going to bring you some good information each week. much for doing our market update and lender tip section. We'll see you back here next week. Well, here we have today for our maintenance tip of the week, Mr. Blake Hughes of Bear Creek Inspections, going to talk to us about spring maintenance. And today's topic is going to be gutter and downspout maintenance.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
So
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about why gutters and downspouts are, how you and I think are more important than people realize.
Yeah, no, they really are. And it's one of those things you probably don't think of much until it's an issue. But yeah, gutters, they just collect water and they get it away from your home and they usually send it out to the street. And then that's so important because water causes most of the issues that I see when inspecting homes. Water that's not properly collected or diverted away from the home. And so gutters, they collect it and they keep it, they just keep the home nice and dry and safe. And springtime is an especially good time because, you've had all winter of sticks, snow, all sorts of things falling on our house and roof. And so springtime is a great time to get all that stuff out of your gutters, clean it up, and make sure that's flowing really nice. And so one tip I suggest is when you get up there and you scoop out all of the debris, you can stick a hose up there and kind of test the gutter, make sure it's running well, but also to flush out all the extra little bits and make sure everything's flowing well.
So what are the negative side effects of not doing this kind of maintenance?
Yeah, so a couple of things is, oftentimes like in the corners of gutters, you'll see it by the front door a lot of times. That seal will fail over the years, and so then the gutter will start to drip or leak behind, and that could rot out your fascia. It could also leave a nice puddle by your front door, which doesn't look great. But then when cold weather happens, it freezes, and now it's a safety issue as well. But besides that, downspouts oftentimes will leak if not properly maintained, and then they end up dripping or water comes in contact with the siding. And this is one of my pet peeves because here you have functioning siding, but then it's been dripped on with water and it ends up rotting away with it. And it's a very simple thing. And yet here, after a few years, you have to have it replaced. And it just makes me sad as a home inspector to see that because I know it's a very preventable issue.
Well, and siding deterioration is not something we associate with non-functioning gutters and drains. We often think foundation, right? That's the obvious one. But siding is really expensive to repaint or have to replace, even if it's just a few boards.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, siding is another issue, especially when a large amount of water sits by the foundation. It can cause your foundation to sink or water intrusion into the crawl space, which could then cause a mold issue. So just simple things like, taking care of the gutter system can really help make you have a nice, clean, and functioning home for many years to come.
So how does a homeowner assess the status of their gutters and drains?
Yeah, probably the best and maybe not the most convenient is just to put a rain jacket on when you have a nice heavy rain. But yeah, if you go out there in the rain and you just check out how the gutters look, make sure there's no big waterfalls coming off the gutters. Check your downspouts out, make sure there's not a lot of siding or that's getting wet or drips that are dripping onto the siding. That's usually the best, but you can also simulate that with your hose and put it up in the gutter and just kind of
that's a good idea. Yeah. But that's also, going out when it's raining.
Yeah.
Real life simulation, not a simulation, but real life. So Blake, how do people get a hold of you if they determine they've got a problem or they want a home inspection?
Well, I love to help people make their homes safe and functioning for years to come. So you can call and text me at 541-951-4627, and I would be able to help you out and schedule a visit.
Well, thanks so much, Blake, for that maintenance tip of the week. We'll see you next time.
Sounds great. Thanks, Alice.